Welcome back here at the Faculty Factory Podcast, and I'm Kim Skorupski at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas, looking at a new guest of the podcast, Dr. Kathryn Burtson. Hi, Katie.
Hi, thank you for having me today, Kim. I really appreciate the invitation.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Dr. Kathryn Burtson, MD, MHPE, FACP, is a colonel in the United States Air Force Medical Corps. Dr. Burtson is the Director of Medical Education at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, an Associate Professor of Medicine at Wright State and Uniformed Services Universities, and the Vice Chair of Faculty Affairs at Wright State Department of Medicine. Katie comes to us thanks to Dr. Josh Hartzell, who nominated her to be in the podcast. And you can see Dr. Burtson's scholarship, which is really great. Just got done reading 4 articles in PubMed. We're going to point to them on the website, on the facultyfactor.org website, but let me give you a little taste of what Dr. Burtson does. Academic coaching to enhance in-training examination performance in internal medicine residency, academic coaching to promote self-directed learning in GME, empowering learning, self-directed strategies of internal medicine residents and academic coaching program, and the House Cup using longitudinal gamification to improve didactic attendance. There's a theme here. I think it's words are coaching you've picked up and leadership. So this is one of my favorite topics. Katie, thanks again for being here. And hey, Josh, if you're listening, thanks so much for bringing Dr. Burtson to us. Talk to us about coaching and leadership in GME world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking an interest in my scholarship. It's definitely an area of passion. For me, when I came on as a faculty member, a very junior faculty member in my department, one of the initial responsibilities that I took on was the individualized learning plans of our trainees in our residency program. And at that point in time, it unfortunately it was more of a check the box requirement in that every learner who was identified as struggling or in need of remediation was scheduled to meet with me to make this individualized learning plan. We would sit together for a period of time, upwards of an hour, making a plan very detailed for the entire year. And then I wouldn't see them again for the entire academic year. So we would make this best laid plan, but there was zero support outside of that meeting, and accountability was lacking towards whether this actually provided anything to the learner and how it influenced their self-directed learning. So we really took a deep dive as a program into what self-directed learning looks like and how we can best support it. And through an AMA coaching workshop that's done annually in Chicago, we were really introduced to this new construct of coaching in medical education.
Yeah. Katie, can you start by telling us providing us a couple examples of remediation level interventions? What kinds of things are faculty showing up with that would merit this conversation, this individualized learning plan? What are we talking about here? Is it stylistic? Is it personality? Is it something with teaching competencies? Can you just give us a flavor, of course, without going into too many details, just so we have our heads wrapped around? Is this someone who is, you know, throwing scalpels across emergency an operating room, or is it someone who maybe doesn't follow the syllabus? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that clarifying question. When we started off our learning plans, they were laser focused on the medical knowledge domain,
Mm.
specifically whether they had the medical knowledge that we thought would meet the criteria to pass their high stakes summative American Board of Internal Medicine examination at the end of residency.
Gosh, and how is that ascertained? Like, how is that competency or that aspect known to be something that we can go up? How do they
Yeah,
ascertain that they're a little low, below par?
we would use the annual in training examinations, the internal medicine national in training examination, to predict whether or not someone was at risk of not passing their boards.
Good. And I'm always fascinated by the objective data, like, data-driven decisions, as well as the layer of personal aspect into this. It's one thing maybe if your physician tells you you need to lose weight and get fit. It's another thing if I say, you're right, versus, no, I don't. What are you talking about? So I've always wondered, like, okay, the data say this, and then the patient or the learner is like, nah, I'll be all right. And maybe that might be part of the driver why, like, you don't see him after a year, or the healthcare provider may not see the patient for a while because they just said that, it kind of nodded the head and said, yeah, sure, I'll get right on that. Or I wonder if some people would take it to heart and then have a, like, yeah, they're right, I'm going to do that, but then fail. You never know all the things that could happen in that intervening year. Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking to our theoretical framework for when we did start to investigate the coaching program and did extend it to all residents within our training program, we really thought that residents existed in this zone of proximal development, first established by Vygotsky, but further extrapolated by Gallimore and Tharp. We thought that residents existed in one of four stages. In stage one, they require an assistance of another. They're in that area in the zone of proximal development where they need more direct oversight in order to meet the competency or automaticity in the skill you're trying to teach them. Some residents exist in zone two where they can help themselves, but they could still benefit from an external set of eyes, someone to help them further hone their skill sets and deliberately practice their skills to become better or more of an expert in that domain. And then stage three, where they develop automaticity in the task. So our thought was that some of our learners existed in zone one and some of them existed in zone two, but that all of them could benefit from having that support of an assigned faculty coach.
I love it. And so how did the coaching framework overlap with these zones of learning and instruction and automaticity?
Yeah, so we taught our coaches every year. We do faculty development for the coaches, regardless of whether they've been doing it since we rolled it out in 2021 or whether they're new coaches. And we talk about the theoretical underpinnings and how that might drive how much they need to engage with their coachee. Each coachee has a different level of scaffolding, a different level of awareness of where their gaps are, and some may need more support and more accountability than others that have become more automatic in their understanding and more metacognitive in what they know they need to do in order to address their gaps in knowledge.
Wow, wow. So can you walk us through what your coach approach would be? I imagine, if a case presents itself, there's some level of you ascertaining or your team ascertaining again that zone, and then the meeting to kind of get more into clarity around what the coachee decides is the area of the goal, the area of concentration alongside with you. Like, how does that whole process evolve? And then ideally, what does that experience look like when, again, an ideal scenario with a coachee comes to you, and how do you measure that progress and how does that evolve, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So after we get back the residents in training examinations, we do a workshop that is led by me and one of the co-creators of our faculty coaching program, Dr. Kelsey Wilson, and we help them develop their individualized learning plans for the academic year. We have them use SMART goals in order to come up with some longitudinal goals for the entire year, but we also list every objective that they missed on their in-training exam, which comes in the in-training exam report. And we come up with a menu of what active learning modalities they could utilize to mitigate those gaps. And then we leave a timeline in there for them to annotate when they were able to address their learning gaps, as well as a section where they should annotate what learning method they used. Did they discuss it with a peer? Did they take a board style question? Did they attend a problem-based learning session? So that we're able to account for what methods they're utilizing in their learning. So we have that plan already created. And then we have our trained faculty coaches, and they are assigned to residents, usually between 2 to 4 residents per year, depending on how many coach volunteers we have. And as a coach, I meet with my residents when they're on their clinic Y block. We're on an X plus Y system. So for every 6 weeks, they're on a rotation. They're in clinic for 2 weeks, and we give them dedicated time during that 2 week rotation to meet with their faculty coach. And they pull up that learning plan that they had made, and we talk about how they're progressing with their learning plan. And we use coaching frameworks in those meetings. We use very pragmatic, easy to implement coaching frameworks. My favorite one is the WOOP framework, WOOP, which is wish, um, outcome, obstacle, plan. So, what is your learning goal? What would be the best outcome if you were able to achieve this? What obstacles do you foresee in the next 6 weeks to meeting your learning goals? And then let's come up with a plan.
That's reminding me of the Jeffrey Auerbach of the College of Executive Coaching, where I learned it's the good model, the goal, the options or obstacles, obstacles or options, and doing. So what's your goal? What obstacles may you encounter or do you encounter? What are your options? And then what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, they sound very familiar. We give our coaches the reflective what questions as well as pre-written faculty scripts that they could use if they don't want to recall on the fly the WHOOP framework. They have flexibility in which coaching framework that they utilize. But with the good framework and with the WHOOP framework and with reflective what, the really goal is to let the learner reflect and develop an awareness of what their goals are and what strategies would be useful for them to mitigate any learning gaps that they have and to preemptively anticipate any type of obstacle they might have to sticking with their plan. And they
Yeah.
have a lot of obstacles. They're in residency. Sometimes they're on busy intensive care unit rotations. Sometimes they're on night rotations. They might have something going on in their family or in their social life that interferes with their ability to stick with the plan as stated. So, anticipating and coming up with action plans before those events or rotations occur is an important part of our process.
And so valuable going through life because this residency is like a kind of a sneak peek of what's going to happen when you get in outside in the real world about constant competing demands. And so having that skill set of being able to reflect and kind of nip things in the bud before they become issues and remembering, oh, this seems familiar to me. I remember that when I get in this zone, this is where I tend to go. So being able to kind of identify and know ourselves, I think is so incredibly important. As you're talking, I'm kind of like so curious, how many if you could tell us operationally, how many coaches, what does your system look like? How many coaches do you have who went to AMA or, you say you talked about them being volunteers. Who's in your toolkit in terms of coaches? And then during the course of a year, when you have these coaches and each assigned, 2 or 3 or 4, I'm curious of the coaches you all get together. And if you notice patterns or any way of phenotyping, I'm always interested in years and years ago, colleague and I presented at the AAMC in Chicago on precision faculty development or personalized faculty development because I thought we have precision medicine, we have precision education. Let's talk about precision faculty development. And by now it's been about maybe 12 years and everybody's like, how could you scale that? It's impossible to do it. And I've been noodling around with it ever since. And that's what leads me to the phenotyping is being able to, as you described these like earlier, these zones. Have you noticed or have you measured or are you looking at, gosh, it seems that when we have faculty who have X and do Y, they're more likely to get to Z. And being able to think about, again, the phenotyping so that we can help faculty who aren't quite there yet say, you know what, based on my expertise at pretend even, being a diagnostician, I can tell that you're presenting with classic symptoms of ba, 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 and this particular treatment might work best for you. So similarly, gosh, you're presenting as a faculty or a person who likes to learn this way, or who really thrives in an environment where they have this. And based on your personality type, you might really, do well in a very scheduled, routinized, whatever. You're nodding, you see what I'm getting at. And therefore kind of try to shorten that learning curve so that they don't have to trial and error. But like, you've looked at hundreds and hundreds of faculty, and by now we're pretty confident that this package, this way of doing or being, might help you succeed and meet your goals quicker, or more fully.
Yeah, no, we definitely go through attributes of effective coaches as part of our faculty development workshop. And we purposefully pair off seasoned coaches with new coaches when we break off into small group activities. But as an important part of our program, we also circle back with the evidence that we're able to elucidate from our investigations into the coaching program. And we were able to get pretty rich qualitative insights from the coachee into what works for them. And one of the things that came up repeatedly, that became a theme in our analysis, was the attributes of the coach. And it really mattered to the trainee that they felt that they weren't being judged, that they felt like their coach was available, all right, meeting them, making sure that they didn't perceive any barriers to having these formal meetings with their coach, but also someone who created this supportive clinical learning environment. Right. In clinical learning environment, we could probably spend an entire podcast unpacking, but they felt the optimal level of stress. They felt some accountability towards completing their learning plan because they didn't want to let their coach down. But they also weren't so stressed out that they were becoming anxious or avoiding or freezing when it came to their individualized learning plans.
Dr. Burtson, that is a lot there. I love this because when you're rattling off this important list of faculty who thrive when coaches have these attributes, not being judgy, being available, creating a supportive clinical learning environment, and being accessible. Gosh, that's just good leadership. So, I mean, now I'm thinking, I just love when things overlap and when you can go, oh, plug and play this to there. Geez, wouldn't it be great if division directors, department chiefs, and deans were not judgmental, available, created supportive learning environments, were accessible? Geez, what an idea. That is just good stuff to do, that we can all kind of say, you know what, I thrive when, therefore, my learners, my patients, my colleagues, my investigators in the lab, we might all thrive when we're not being judged, when we're all available to each other, when we're holding each other accountable, and when we work together to create a supportive environment, learning, researching, teaching, any kind of a support. It's just basic fundamental principles of leadership. And as a colonel and a doctor, I know that's, you're big on leadership. So I love it when there's symmetry and everything just kind of makes so much sense without making it overly complex. It's just good leadership principles.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I love that you see applicability to other domains. We definitely laser focused on academic coaching, which is a specific archetype of coaching focused on their success in passing their high stakes summative examinations, which are important, right, for them and in society to be recognized as an expert in their field. But there are other domains, and coaching probably was first popularized by Atul Gawande, who specifically looked at skills-based coaching within the operating room and within his department and his own personal skills as a surgeon. But what you're speaking to is really that developmental coaching, right? Which doesn't exclusively fit graduate medical education in the lens of the resident or undergraduate medical education in the lens of the learner. It also can help faculty as they are trying to develop their skill sets as educators and leaders within the department.
Yeah, yeah. So can you tell us an experience where when it doesn't work, where are the sticking points? When the coaching when it's either not a good alignment, it's not a good match, you have a learner who is just way too ambitious, almost like writing a grant application where they have, want to have 15 different specific aims, and you kind of say, really, you need no more than three, but no, I can do these five, and you got aim 1A dash 2, 3B, and is it too much? Is it lack of focus? Is it, again, when it doesn't work, where do you kind of go, wait a minute, my spidey sense is telling me this is, it's not going to work. And where you usually I see those little rough edges.
For me, I've seen a couple instances where it doesn't work, and what I'm concerned about is the mindset of the trainee. So, in my personal experience, the trainees who struggle the most with the individualized learning plans and with the coaching are those who have a rather fixed mindset, in that they've been successful for most of their lives. It takes a lot of success, a lot of effort, a lot of luck, to be top of your class through college, through medical school, match into a residency. And now it might be the first time that they've ever been told that they're just average or not meeting
Yeah, yeah.
expectations. And that, if they have a fixed mindset, could be a complete blow to their persona, to their ego. And instead of repairing and looking towards fixing where their gaps are, they kind of defend and deflect their position within the program. And trainees who take this feedback as an offense against their success or their aptitude, rather than embracing the opportunity to develop their skill sets, do struggle.
That's super cool, Katie. I love this. Fixed mindset, defend and deflect. And again, I can't help but go to this the idea of thinking about a career longitudinally and seeing a person evolve naturally, organically, going up the ranks, being successful, having obvious indicators of that success. Look at my CV, count the things, look at the emblems, look at the badges, look at the things I am successful, and then to be met with evidence that you're not can be a tremendous blow. It is to the ego of like, this does not compute. What do you mean? They say I'm not a good leader. What do you mean? Faculty in my department are not happy with my leadership. How is this, the idea of rising to our level of incompetence and that, the Peter principle thing. And I think it is tragic when it's, as you note, it's that lack of reflection and the fixed mindset of being able to say, oh, how curious. I'm interested. How interesting that this is arriving, that people are thinking I'm bullying, or I'm not creating a learning environment. I'm too tough, or I'm not available to people. Huh? That's interesting. My whole life I've been good at that. What's happening now that might be the perception and or the evidence? What's going on here? And that ability to kind of like pause and say, okay, I'm obviously not the same person, not the same environment. What's new? What's different? Um, like in a recipe, this doesn't quite taste right. What is different? It's always the same recipe I've always used. Well, is it? Are the ingredients exactly the same? Is the temperature, is the elevation, is the humidity, all of the tools the same? Probably not. So that curiosity of, I have to make an adjustment here. What I've been doing doesn't work now here. uh Not the end of the world, but that kind of that openness. That's what I love about what you're saying, Katie, about the self-reflection, and that coaching approach and the mindset can help us along the entire career continuum.
Yeah, and this coaching program has been very iterative. Every year, we're recognizing gaps and improving our program and our processes. But something we did add in the last 2 years is references to Carol Dweck, added in a TED Talk for the residents to watch when we're developing their learning plan so they understand what we're talking about when we say we want them to embrace a growth mindset, as well as completion of the inventories, the DWEC inventories, to determine whether you are fixed or growth mindseted for both the faculty coaches and for the residents who are participating in the coaching program.
Remind me, Katie, how many coaches are in your program?
It changes every year. When we studied, we had 13 faculty coaches. We've had at most 20 faculty coaches.
Wow, wait. And they're volunteers. You mentioned earlier they volunteer, so they don't have effort assigned to do the coaching.
In the military health system and the VA, which are two of the three hospitals that we have in the Dayton area, we're able to protect faculty time. They don't earn an FTE, but we can give them a .1 faculty appointment out of their regularly scheduled templated appointments, depending
Yes.
on how actively involved they are in the residency. So while they are volunteers, we have worked to tie in coaching as an expectation to our decremented faculty over
Got
the
it.
past 2 years.
I think that's important. It just demonstrates the institutional commitment to this versus being another uncompensated effort that, that kind of the difficult position we are in academia where we all want to be mentors and coaches and sponsors and competing with all the other things we're doing if it's not minimally acknowledged as something we do and that it does take time and effort, that's kind of it. It can be difficult to recruit people who are good at what they do to do this kind of professional career development work when it's not acknowledged or somehow compensated either by FTE or at least by some kind of a measure at the end of the year of documenting that commitment and service to the institution. So I like that model that you use. So
Yeah.
how do you yeah, where are you going in the future with the program and with the students and the learning program going forward? Where do you see the opportunities to grow? You say every year you're iterating and you're looking for ways to improve. What's in your mind for what's next in the arsenal of the coaching and leadership?
Absolutely. So I have transitioned last year from being a residency program director to the director of medical education. So my vision would be to develop formal coaching programs across our other graduate medical education and graduate health education programs. We have 12 here right now. I think it is working in internal medicine, and we can always come up with micro changes from year to year on how we can make it more successful, more feasible, and more sustainable. But it's still siloed in that department, and it is a construct that could work in any training environment. So my vision is to extend it, and I'm currently working with ER on how they could utilize their individualized learning plans and entertain a coach as someone who helps facilitate that reflection and the guidance and support and structure.
Wow, I like that. And I imagine you have some good champions who get it and get the literature and appreciate the data and can see the return on investment on something like that. That's probably a good way to sell it, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely learned that whenever you're going through those change management principles of like, how do I sell people on my new program or process? Because every new program and process takes that cognitive effort and resources and shift almost in the culture of the department to prioritize it as important. Uh, and data sells. So when you have that quantitative and qualitative data to show this is how it influenced our learners and this is why, it really helps garner buy-in from stakeholders in different departments.
And I think this is probably just so perfectly timed what you're doing, Katie, because students and our next generations, they're kind of accustomed to this coach approach, an undergraduate and and med school. So this is not something new compared to, say, some older generations who might not look as favorably on this, that I think some of the next generation, they're expecting this level of investment in their development. Am I off base on that or close? How am I doing with the military and the
No, I
VA? Is that your
completely agree
opinion?
with you. Yeah, I find the undergraduate medical education, the medical schools are at the forefront of most of these positive changes in the way we address formal education programs. And they were the first pieces of literature that I saw on formalized coaching programs came out of undergraduate medical education. But one of the most formal programs I was exposed to as an individual was the Uniformed Services University coaching program for their medical students, where they have a very well constructed pairing of a faculty coach with a resident longitudinal relationship and tracking of outcomes of that relationship.
Yeah, so I think that's to me that bodes well for continued success and innovation and creativity when you're not like back when mentoring became a thing in academic health, what, 30, 40 years ago, whatever. It was a lot of what is mentoring? What's it mean to be a mentor? What's it mean to be a mentee? And how is this different from just a regular meeting or an advisor? And there's this whole kind of like, what is this? All right, fine. That's what I do. Yeah, you may do it, but you're not doing it really well. But it's different when you're preaching to the choir, so to speak, when you have a whole cohort of people going, yes, we can level up. We've been here. We understand this. And not only do we understand and get it, we expect it. And so y'all better up your game because we're coming and this is what we need. This is what we want. Let me tell you how it works for me. This is how I like to have this relationship. So I think what I'm excited about is that all of us in faculty affairs and faculty development leveling up our games to meet the learners and new faculty members where they are and where they want to be and see where we can go with people who are like ready to like they get it, they want it. So that is to me is a new dynamic that it's instead of pulling people along, we may be behind them and they're pulling us along. So we have to kind of keep up with their demands and their expectations of us. And that's what I like the kind of forward thinking of where are they going to be and where does augmented intelligence fit into this? And how do we make sure we continue to leverage this community aspect and relationship building and making sure that they see the value of that human lived experience and how that can kind of facilitate that growth versus just going to AI and asking AI for everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love the perspective of we no longer have to sell the trainees. They already come in knowing what the experience feels like and understanding the benefits it had on their career thus far. The burden is now shifted to me as a faculty developer to ensure that I have a cadre of coaches who understand what the goal is of the coaching program, who have the appropriate skills necessary to be an effective coach. And it's a little different in that in graduate medical education, sometimes you're multi-hatted. Sometimes, depending on the day, the interaction, the learner, you're either acting as their mentor or their sponsor or their advisor or their teacher. So really understanding that role integrity so that the faculty can switch those hats depending on the trainee, the circumstance, and the program under which they're operating really puts the burden on us as faculty developers to ensure that happens.
Perfect. That's it. That's it. The hats, knowing the hat. I'm going to take this one off, putting this one on. And I really can appreciate the focus on the individual learning plan. And I can envision a coaching cadre of, hey, let's all have our own coaching individual learning plans as a coach. We all need individualized learning plans and career development plans and be as a coach, mentor, advisor, leader, investigator, whatever, uh, having something to work on, and that self-reflection is always that growth mindset of recognizing I'm not done yet. And even if I am done at this moment, something new is going to come along to challenge me to go, oh, there's an interesting, something about me that I didn't know, either good or bad. And that always being curious about how can I level up my game? How can I be a better fill in the blank coach, teacher, mom, dad? So that's what I really appreciate about this mindset is the curiosity and seeking clarity to just advance and to improve and help others. So I think there's so much cool stuff going there, and I'm so glad you're doing it. And I love everything that's happening in Dayton, Ohio.
Thank you. I
Well,
love curiosity too. I think it's a powerful role modeling tool.
it is. It is. Well, Dr. Katie Burtson, Kathryn Burtson, Colonel Burtson, if you want to get in touch with her, she's got this great long email address. I'm going to post it in the website, but the easy version of her email address is kathrynburtson@gmail.com, she told me. And Kathryn is Kathryn dot Burtson, Burtson, @gmail.com. But it'll all be on the facultyfactory.org website. We're going to have links to all her the articles that I mentioned to you. We're going to have on ways to get in touch with her, or a little description of Dr. Burtson. And thanks again, Josh, for bringing Katie to the podcast. She'll come back sometime and we'll hit some of those other topics that we can go into. But I'm going to leave some parting thoughts to you, Katie, about your work and what you're doing and what you'd like to leave with the global audience here on the Faculty Factory.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that through dissemination of our coaching work, we can really help push graduate medical education forward in helping develop our learners, respecting them as individuals and meeting them where they are. Instead of spending all of our time focused on struggling learners, coaching gives us a very powerful framework to help our average learners become beyond average and our successful learners build expertise over the span of their career. So, really looking towards those individualized approaches and fostering that reflection so that our learners develop effective self directed learning skills before they leave our training programs.
Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.